Hello there, world, wherever you are. Welcome to episode 3 of the There Will Be Geek podcast. My name is Mike, and with me I have my two esteemed colleagues. First of all, on my left we have...
I'm Kev.
And on my right we have...
I'm Chani.
And this week we have got a very special topic in order of a very new video game release, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first of all, we have our Thimble of Win. Kev, give me a Thimble of Win for this podcast.
Okay, so my Thimble of Win is a new game, just to tie in with the general gaming theme of today. Another new game that came out this week, apart from the new Doom, Stellaris, a new space-bound strategy game by Paradox Software, who are very well known in the PC gaming world for very, very intense strategy games, things like Crusader Kings 2, Europa Universalis, and they've branched out into the sci-fi realm. It's very much kind of a civilization sort of deal. You're playing as a civilization, colonizing the stars, and eventually getting into scraps with other races. What Paradox do, though, is they tend to bring in more of a kind of role-playing element. There are a lot of sort of random occurrences. You discover alien races, alien artifacts, and it creates this really lovely sense of discovery. That you really get this feeling that you're not just claiming territory, you're a race learning to explore the stars and finding exciting new things, and eventually fighting other races. It's been great so far. I'm only about 10 hours into it, but it's been very cool. So, yeah, it's definitely recommended.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, Chani, your little Thimble of Win, please.
Pokemon! Gotta catch 'em all! But, yeah. Pokemon! This week, it is all about the new Pokemon games coming out, I believe, in November of this year. That is Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. The 3 starters have been revealed. As always, there is a water, there is grass, and there is fire. The water one, yeah, it's like pillow, but I don't know. I can't pronounce it, but it's a water Pokemon, so I don't really care. The second one, grass Pokemon, is this tiny little owl thing called Rowlet or Rowlet. I'm not sure how you would pronounce it, but it's this tiny little owl. And as we all know, owls, they go, hoo, hoo. This tiny little thing has 2 little leaves on it that look like a bow tie. Bow ties and who? Is anyone else just thinking Doctor Who as soon as they see this little owl?
A little bit here, a little bit.
But the one that I'm excited about is the third one, which is the Fire-type Pokemon, which I'm always going to go with the Fire-type, because that's just how I roll. Its name is Lilith, and it's a cat! It's a cat Pokemon! It's a fire Pokemon! And I get to have it from the start! So I'm very, very happy about this, because it's going to be like little fire furballs that just get to throw up at people. So yes, I love cat Pokemon. I breed skitties on my little 3DS. I've always loved Meowth and the Persian. That was my bad Persian impersonation, but that's what I'm excited for this week. I just need to figure out if I want to get Sun or Moon. I haven't looked at the kind of legendaries that are in each one, but since the way this goes is it works better when you play with friends, I'll see what ones my friends are actually getting, and then I'll get the opposite one, so we can trade and do things differently.
Awesome sauce. In my case, it's nothing to do with gaming. It is to do with TV and more casting. Altered Carbon. Now, Altered Carbon is a really, really, really wonderful kind of future dystopian cyberpunk novel by the author Richard Morgan. He's a British sci-fi author, and he is very good for his kind of blisteringly dark, vaguely cynical, angry kind of dystopian cyberpunk visions of the future. Altered Carbon is a kind of a future noir-style thriller set in this kind of an environment, and I read the book ages ago on the recommendation of my friend Kyle, and I never looked back. It's an awesome piece of work, and it's coming to Netflix. Netflix are going to be making a series of this, I believe. I think it's Joel Kinnaman, the guy who was basically, he's been in the recent Suicide Squad movie, or the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. He was also in the RoboCop, in the remake of RoboCop, which actually, I remember watching that, and it didn't have any good reason to be made, but it was a perfectly good film. Anyway, Netflix at the moment are very much, as most people would notice, are on the ball because they are picking up interesting properties and stuff that wouldn't necessarily have gone over to other places. And honestly, it keeps on making me happy when I see these kinds of things, because there's a whole bunch of these properties that have been out there for years that now can be made into something potentially very, very, very good indeed. I can't wait to see what people manage to do with kind of the world of Richard Morgan here, because the man is utterly wonderful. Okay, well, that's the Thimble of Win over for the moment. Now, for the main subject of tonight, Doom.
Doom!
I'm going to sing the Doom song.
Yes.
I won't sing the Doom song just to save our listeners' ears.
Yes, I know. We've already had one or two people groan at the possibility that I might be in there. So
hey, I sung Pokemon. You're not getting the Doom.
So, Doom. The reason we're doing this is because I think it was just yesterday.
Yep.
Just yesterday, the new version of Doom was released. Now, I've already seen various different friends of mine posting their copies of the PlayStation version of it, or people excited about the fact that they've got it from Steam, or they've queued up outside EB Games like someone here.
8 a.m., baby.
Exactly. So this is something that is a big, big deal in terms of the computer game world. And I think what we were going to be doing is we were going to be looking into a little bit of the history of Doom. How did it come about to be? Any kind of mods and interesting kind of ways that people have found to play Doom, and also a little bit about its kind of its cultural legacy as well. So, first of all, I'm going to ask you two, what was so special about Doom?
Doom was kind of a watershed moment in gaming, one of the real true watershed moments. I think it helped usher in the age of 3D gaming. I mean, it wasn't the first game to go all 3D. There had been several. I mean, there'd even been 3D shooters. But it was probably it, along with Wolfenstein 3D, their previous game. They were the first to really sort of to bring in a fast, arcadey, exciting Twitch gaming experience in full 3D. They were the first games to make players really feel like they were looking out of the eyes of the protagonist, which is something that everyone wanted. I remember at school, like conversations in the playground, fantasizing about this amazing game where you could run around and shoot people and actually look through your character's eyes, see your gun in front of you, have to actually aim instead of watching a little ball move across the screen, which is what most shooting games were in the sort of the early 80s and going up towards the 90s. So it was pretty mind-blowing. I mean, it brought in a completely new way of playing games.
That was kind of the same with me, like a new way of playing games, because before that, the only gaming in our house was done via console. So we had, the old Atari, and we had the NES as well. And to play that, like, we weren't, a family that had TVs in every room. We had one TV, and I could only play games when other people weren't watching TV. So it was very limited time of when I could actually play these games. And when I remember it was when I probably got one of my first desktop computers was when I was able to get Doom 2. And that opened up the world completely for me, because it was a different style of gaming, as Cav was saying. It was looking through your character's eyes, and also the fact that I could play this whenever I wanted and for how long I wanted without disturbing my parents or my brother. And plus the sheer fact of the gore and the violence in it blew me away, because before this I'd only been playing things like Super Mario or Asteroids or Trog and weird stuff like that. This completely blew me away, and it was a whole new level of skill that I had to develop, because it wasn't just like a console controller in my hand. I had to coordinate with like keyboards and mouse, and it just blew me away that this was what was available and out there.
Now, here's the thing. You mentioned Doom 2 already. Was this really... was this the first time we'd seen any kind of a first-person shooter like this?
Not really. There had been attempts made in the past. Probably the first, what could technically be argued as the first ever first-person shooter, was a game called Maze, which was made in 1973 for the IMLAC PDS-1 and PDS-4 computers. Research. Fuck yeah. But there've been others. There was Monster Maze 3D on the ZX Spectrum. That's a very well remembered game where you're basically running through a maze, shooting things, and you get attacked by a dinosaur. It was very rudimentary, but it's often a game that's called back as an early example. Also, one of the very early Aliens games on the 8-bit computers. That kind of qualifies because that was in first-person perspective. You played as the squad. You actually jumped between the perspectives of the different squad members, and you were moving between rooms. You had a reticle on the screen and were being attacked by aliens. It wasn't full 3D, but it was still probably one of the earliest examples of shooting from a first-person perspective. Where the jump is really made, though, is with Wolfenstein 3D. So that was the first major 3D game from id Software. You played a soldier called BJ Blazkowicz, trapped in a Nazi castle. So you run around shooting Nazis, finding secrets, and making your way to eventually fight Mecha Hitler. Suddenly there was that speed, there was that real sense of the 3D feel, and it all sort of came together, and Doom was another step up from that. But Doom really nailed it.
Now, here's the thing. With regards to Doom, I mean, I know that the first example of Doom that I ever encountered was when I was at university, but that wasn't the original Doom. No, it was Doom 2. What about the first version of Doom? How easy was it to get hold of that? I mean, was it something that was available in the shops? I don't remember seeing it.
No, the original Doom was only available either via mail order or shareware. So this is why when people talk about the first Doom, I have no idea about that, because the first game in my mind was always Doom 2, because that was in the stores. The guy, when we were buying the computer, was like, hey, we've got this too, and you'd get the CD for it and go home and install it. Whereas it seems like with the first one, yeah, you had to know someone or, read those sorts of comics or books or magazines where you could mail away for it. Now, the thing with this is also, because we may have a little bit of an age difference here, in 1994, I was 10 years old. So I didn't have access to, magazines and all those kinds of weird stuff. And I didn't have a group of people to talk to about games because I was a girl. Girls don't play video games, and that was very apparent on school playgrounds and things.
See, for me, a bit of a disclaimer, both myself and Cav started university in 1994, and in fact we met each other in the same halls of residence at the University of Newcastle in the UK. And that was also the first place where I encountered Doom. And I think, actually, oddly enough, the first memory I have of Doom isn't even of playing it, but it's of looking at a version of Doom that had been modded on a friend of mine's computer. Basically, he'd never actually managed to put the monsters in or anything, but what he'd done was he'd found the schematics for our halls of residence and had recreated them as if they were Doom.
That's cool.
That's
I know.
Awesome. I never even knew about that until you told me recently. That is brilliant.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I was talking about this to a colleague at work the other day, and he was saying that basically there is a friend of his who is still modding and creating new Doom levels, even 20-odd years later. But we'll get to a little bit more about mods later on. I think there's another thing. One of the things that I remember being notable about Doom, it was one of the first games that you really were able to play on networks. Now, there were several people in our halls of residence who never got past their first year of university because we had a network of about 5 to 10 computers in the halls of residence library. Doom was on there, and there were a lot of people who had a lot of late-night Doom gaming sessions who basically, because of that, never attended university enough and flunked out of their first years of uni. Because that was it. It was Doom, 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 Doom. No, I am not getting into the Doom song. I am not getting into the Doom song. But yeah, there were several people who just never made it beyond there because they were so enraptured with this, because this was a pretty big deal. And I think it's also, for example, Doom 2 seemed to be notable because it was one of the first, it was turned up at a time when the actual tech to play it on, so the computers themselves, became more widely available and more powerful. And again, going back to that Simon Halls of Residence, there was a friend of ours who was studying for a computing science degree, and we were astounded by the fact that he had a computer that had a gig hard drive. A gig! I mean, who was ever going to need that much space?
Yeah. I didn't even know gigs existed back then.
Yeah.
No.
And to be fair,
Flabbergasted!
to be fair, this was before the kind of the massive explosion in terms of storage space on hard drives. It wasn't, and from what I recall, it's not even something that was a big deal in terms of actually changing the tech so much as realizing that you could store more on what was already there if you just did a few extra things a little bit different, which kind of grew the storage space exponentially.
Well, I mean, a lot of it as well is that it was before the time when I think it was before when PCs hit the mainstream.
Exactly.
I mean, in the 90s, not many people had a computer. The internet hadn't gone mainstream just yet. And there probably was less of a need because they were less widely used.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that also with Doom as well. I mean, I never actually played Doom properly on PC till maybe the early 2000s because throughout a lot of the 90s, I didn't have a computer.
No,
I was a poor student and there was never the need for it. I mean, a lot of my initial memories of Wolfenstein and Doom are from the Super Nintendo versions, which I sort of played religiously.
At this point in proceedings, I need to put in a rather large, hefty reason as to why I'm not putting as many contributions about the game itself here. You see, after 94, 95, when it first came out, friends of mine at university did have copies, and occasionally we'd be around their houses and we'd spend some time playing the game because it was heaps of fun. But I found myself in a position where after a while of playing it, I felt a bit ill. And then less and less time elapsed. And it got to a point where I couldn't be in the same room as somebody playing Doom because it would make me feel ill. My head would spin, I would feel horrendously nauseous. And it's an ongoing problem because honestly, not being able to play Doom has pretty much stopped me from ever becoming that much of a gamer. I found that almost all first-person shooters, because of the unnatural movement in there, I got horrendously bad motion sickness. Now, I even tried to do something around this using travel sickness medication. And, I mean, for example, I recently purchased a copy of Doom 2 from Good Old Games the other day, just so I could give this a try and see, what's the fuss? Can I still do this? Is this a problem? And I managed to last about 15 minutes and ended up having to kind of barely make it through a meal and then just go and crash in my bed and feel horrendously ill for the next 2 days because it just did awful things to me. From what I can gather, I'm relatively on my own with regards to that experience. I don't know if anybody else has done that. There are other games where I have been okay. For example, GoldenEye, I had no problem, probably because of the smoothness of the movement there. So there's no problem there.
The head bubble or the walk.
And that's it. The head bubble was always the real problem there.
Yeah.
But from what I can gather, there was also some other controversy attached to the game at the time, which I've only recently become aware of.
Yeah, well, I mean, Doom kind of for a while there picked up the mantle that heavy metal had in the 80s. It was the number one corrupter of the youth, everyone's favourite creator of mass murderers, serial killers, and general reprobates. Part of it was to do with the theme. You're basically fighting demons from hell.
Yeah, literally hell.
Literally hell. And there's a lot of sort of a heavy metal influence on the games. I mean, even a lot of the music in the games has been, in those early games, is very thinly disguised rip-offs of various metal songs.
I have to interrupt about the music there. When I used to play later on in Doom, this would probably be around 97 or so, because I was still playing it, because I just played it over and over again. I became quite obsessed with the band Hanson. And so I'd be sitting there singing my little heart out, going, bop, dibba-dop, ba-doo-wop, while just blowing away aliens and killing the scum of hell. It's quite a juxtaposition between singing bop and filled with all that gore, but it worked. And
It
I loved
became
it.
Doom Bop.
Yeah, it did.
Now, for what I really need to know at this point is, when you go to Hanson gigs, because I know you go to Hanson gigs, do you suddenly have to fight the urge to suddenly kind of reload and go for a bigger weapon?
Well, with some of the women that I've seen there, yeah.
But what else have we got there? Because you mentioned about music earlier on. I believe there were some people who were kind of relatively well-known musicians who were involved with the whole thing.
In later years, there's a lot of links with Nine Inch Nails. The creators were sort of big metal heads. One of the numerous Easter eggs in the early Doom games is a room in the first Doom which has the Nine Inch Nails logo.
Oh, Oh, cool.
sort of on the walls. And later on, when they made Quake, Trent Reznor did the music for Quake.
You see, that was my next question. So you've got Doom 2, and I know there's a Doom 3, but do they follow on directly from each other?
No. Doom 3 is basically a reboot. We'll get to that a bit more in a little while. They made a lot of changes to the gameplay. But they did keep the Nine Inch Nails connection because Chris Vrenna, the drummer of Nine Inch Nails, did the music for that one. But yeah, I mean, Doom 3 was essentially a reboot, as is the new game. They've had this habit of sort of just rebooting the whole thing. Yeah. Mind you, look, the whole thing with Doom, and you can call them reboots, but really, Doom's never been about story. Yeah. It's really always been about, here's Mars, here are demons, here's a gun, shoot shit. But there's been a lot of attempts to try and graft plot onto Doom.
Yeah, apparently there is a story. And like in my mind when I think of Doom, I never think of the story, which I was just a dude going around killing things. I didn't realize there was a story behind it. Like in my mind, I cannot remember the story. I had to look it up and look about, you know, the unknown man, because you don't get a name, but you're this dude who, you know, he gets stranded and then he has to fight his way out, and then, you know, you're all of a sudden you're on Earth and then that's getting infected and people have to leave Earth, but, you know, the place is infected with, well, not infected, but invaded by the other ones, like the starport that only has the ships to depart, and there's demons there, and then the mariners, Marine, they call him Marine every so often, but there is an actual freaking story there, but I don't think anyone gave two shits about the story in Doom 2.
No, I mean, the actual main character has never had a proper name. He's generally known by the name Doom Guy. That's a fan sort of, something the fans sort of decided in group.
Yeah, I always thought of like Marine. I don't know why. I think it might have had something to do with Space Marines, and that's why I kind of latched onto Marine, but I don't know. He is a badass motherfucker, and I loved him, and I loved the BFG.
Yes, because I think that was one of the other things about this. It wasn't just simply the guns. It was the fact the guns escalated through what seemed to be perfectly reasonable. And normally you just think by the time you get to a minigun, yeah, that'll do. But wait, there is the plasma rifle and the BFG. And it's just known as the BFG in there.
My parents got kind of shocked when I was talking about it one day, and they're like, oh, BFG, what is that? And I'm like, big fucking gun. And they were like, oh, okay.
See, the first few times I heard about people referencing the BFG in conversation, I was confused because the only BFG I knew was the Roald Dahl version.
Oh, the big friendly giant.
Exactly.
Well, to be fair, it's the BFG 9000.
Yeah.
But no one ever says that.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I don't know if you can't really go past the shotgun. Best shotgun in all of gaming.
Yeah.
Just the sound of it, the animation was just perfect. I mean, even now when you play it, you know, I've jumped back into it. I've played with mods and stuff, and still, the shotgun's just a thing of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there somebody's head in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's another one of the Easter eggs. And Doom 2, the final boss, if you use a no-clip cheat to jump behind the final boss's head, you find the head of John Romero, one of the designers of Doom, who was very kind of a bit of a celebrity at the time. His head on a stick.
Well, of course, I didn't know who that was. I just, you know, I ID clipped and, you know, code for walking through walls into this room, and there was a dude's head on there, and it was a white dude with black hair, and I thought it was Michael Jackson.
Here's just the thing. 20-odd years since this game has come out, and I'm going to ask Chani now to wriggle off the codes that are useful.
Hey, ID clip means that you can walk through walls. There's ID KFA, where you can get, you know, all the guns, all the ammo, all the keys, everything is unlocked. And there's also IDDQD, which is God mode. There's a whole heap others out there. I'm pretty sure there are, but those are the three that I always used, and I will never ever forget them. I should probably get them tattooed on me somewhere.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, considering some of the rest of your tats. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. We've got Doom 2, and then Doom 3 doesn't come out till much later. What do we have in between?
In between, all right, well, there's two different threads. id Software went on to create Quake. They did a series of Quake games. I mean, I never really got into Quake as much. It was very much more focused on the multiplayer side of things, and I've always been a primarily single-player kind of guy. But they pretty much just technologically upped the ante from Doom. So it was full polygon 3D environments, etc.
I would also suggest this is probably around about the same time that consoles such as the PlayStation start to become more prevalent. And so as a result, which you get not simply just 2-player multiplayer like you'd have on things like the SNES, but like up to 4-player multiplayer on some of these things as well. So that's where you suddenly get more multiplayer emphasis, because that's where the fashion was for games at the time.
Would you like to know all the different places where you could and still can play Doom?
Yes, Cav. Give us a list of all the different places you could and maybe would want to play Doom.
Okay, it's breath control time, because there's quite a few. So Doom is one of the most widely ported games of all time. Official ports were on...
Okay, could you just explain briefly, what does port mean?
Okay, so port...
It's not just a drink, kids.
It's basically when a game is converted to another format. So, for example, when a game goes on to PC to a console, there's usually a port. So the source code is transferred to that format and readapted. That's a rough general term for that process, a port. Now, the official versions of Doom that were released to shops started off on PC. Now, it came out on Windows, MS-DOS, Linux, Acorn, and a whole raft of other operating systems. On Mac, Sega 32X, Sega Saturn, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, Atari Jaguar, PlayStation 1, 3DO, Xbox, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Tapwave Zodiac, iPod and iPhone, and Android. Those are all the ways you could play Doom legally. Now, there were also a lot of unofficial ports made using source ports, which was basically fans packaging the game's source code into their own utilities and using that to run the game and adapting it for different platforms. Now, here's the list of the homebrew ports of Doom.
See how fast you can say this. I want to see how fast you can do this.
Call the ambulance now. Commodore Amiga, Commodore 64, Game Boy Color, Nintendo DS, Nintendo Wii, Nokia Engage, GP2X, Gizmondo, Ouya, HTML, Flash, Java, Sony Ericsson phones, Symbian phones, Nokia phones, Windows Mobile, Windows Pocket PC, Palm OS, Acorn Archimedes, and Zoom, Web TV, Apple Watch, Raspberry Pi, Nuon, Pocketbook ebook readers, TI-inspired graphic calculators, HP 16700 logic analyzers, particle size analyzers, Kodak digital cameras, LED billboards, Canon inkjet printers, VTech Intertab, in-flight entertainment systems, New York payphones, a toaster, a piano, and Doom via a modded arcade cabinet put into the game.
Wait. Did you just... Okay, do you say a toaster?
A toaster.
A toaster.
A toaster.
What?
I'm presuming some kind of really expensive high-end toaster that had some kind of screen on it.
See, here's the thing, though. With a toaster, you know how you can get toasters that can do, like, today's weather or Darth Vader's face or whatever. You can burn a particular shape into that. Why has nobody yet now burnt particular... You're pointing a gun at a demon, you've got your kind of... your face at the bottom, you've got your weapons choice, you've got your health levels, all that kind of stuff. Why is that not on a piece of toast?
Someone get on that and please send us your Doom toast.
Seriously, that would be amazing. But seriously, a toaster.
A toaster.
Did you mention a printer in there?
Yes, Canon inkjet printers.
I had a Canon inkjet.
How?
And I also had one of the TI calculators as well too, but I didn't have Doom on it, although I did write boobs a lot.
Well, basically these are random fans who have just decided to hack these devices to run Doom on them. There's actually a Tumblr for this. If you go to itrunsdoom.tumblr.com, we'll put a link in the show notes. They've dedicated themselves to basically compiling all the different weird, fucked up places people have put Doom onto. And this isn't the full list, by the way. This is an annotated. This is an abridged list.
Oh, jeez.
There are some fucking nutters out there, I'm telling you.
I know what I'm doing with my Saturday night.
That sounds very reasonable. Now, cultural legacy, because this is the thing. We know all about the fact that Doom has been a big deal in our lives and probably in a lot of other people's lives out there as well. But its cultural legacy is an interesting one. Now, You have something with regards to the books and the comic, don't you, Cav?
Yeah, so basically we were talking before about story in Doom. There's been a long tradition of people trying to sort of graft a story onto Doom. This started in the mid-90s with the original games. There was a series of novels, 4 at the time of the first 2 games, and then they released another 2 for Doom 3. Never read any of them, never been brave enough, probably not missing much. There's also a comic, which was released around the time of the first 2 games. I believe was only available at a particular trade show, and has become rather internet famous because of the crazy dialogue. Now, considering that Doom is a game where everyone knows the main character never speaks, doesn't utter a word, for some reason in the comic he's really chatty, because the whole thing is him running around trying to find this particular cyber demon. For those of you who don't know, the cyber demon is the big horned guy on the cover of Doom 2, talking to himself. And it's known for some of just the most ridiculous writing ever. Now, it's famous for one particular quote, which became a bit of a meme, which is Doom guy running around yelling at the cyber demon, rip and tear your guts. You are huge. That means you have huge guts. Rip and tear.
Wow.
The eloquence, it is truly astounding.
Wow. That should have gotten a Pulitzer or something.
Yeah.
Wait, Pulitzer's, that's the writing one?
That's the journalism one, yeah.
Yeah! Oh, no, I meant... Yeah?
No, yeah, well, do. Nobel Prize for literature, I think, on this one.
All right, cool. Go with it. I got smarts.
And again, imagine people reading this comic who know from the games that Doom Guy never speaks. They open this comic and the first thing they read is this guy saying, I'm cooking with gas. I've got a handful of vertebrae and a head full of mad. Yeah, that's your spinal cord, baby. Dig it. Who's the man? I'm the man. I'm a bad man. How bad? Real bad. I'm a 12.0 on the 10.0 scale of badness. Don't need a gun. Guns are for wusses.
See, that, to my mind, that is dialogue that Uwe Boll would go, now hang on.
Basically, because there's a lot of Evil Dead lines thrown there. Imagine Bruce Campbell on Angel Dust in Doom cosplay.
Oh, God.
That's pretty much it.
Oh, I want that to be a thing so much right now.
Mercifully, the comic is only about 16, 17 pages long. You can actually find it online. It's interesting.
See, this is the other thing as well, because one of the things I wanted to bring in for this is a book by an author called Christopher Brookmyre called A Big Boy Did It and Ran Away, which is Christopher Brookmyre, for those people who haven't read him, he's a Scottish author, and he writes kind of noir, fast-paced kind of crime novels in a very kind of sassy kind of way, very much with a similar sort of sensibility to the likes of, Elmore Leonard and other American crime writers. He's got that kind of vibe going on, except all of his stuff is set in and around Scotland, usually. Glasgow, Edinburgh, in and around that area, often with quite a lot of dialect thrown in. A Big Boy Did It and Ran Away. One of the large chunks of this, and is constantly referred back to, is Doom. The central character is somebody who sees a guy at the airport he thought was dead. The guy at the airport turns out to be a massive international terrorist. And in the subsequent years, they've been at university together, and they've kind of obviously gone on very different paths. And a large chunk of this goes right the way through, even to a crucial moment in this book, where the system level of Doom is referenced directly. And Doom is a massive part of that. And I think this is the other thing. Doom finds its way into so many other little nooks and crannies.
Yeah. Brookmyre also wrote Bedlam,
Yes.
Which was about a guy stuck in a video game, which was very clearly a reference to Quake.
Yes.
Very entertaining book, definitely recommended. They even made a video game of it and made it look like Quake.
See, that's
really
cool.
Entertaining read, very funny.
And then also, we've got things like that. We then get to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, Doom the movie from 2005. Now, neither of you actually watched this movie to research for this podcast, did you?
No, this is the
Did
thing.
you?
Because this is the thing, and I mentioned this to you guys earlier on, and I know it's not a universal thing, but generally speaking, if I see that the main star of a movie is going to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I have a tendency to think, you know what? That's going to be rubbish.
This movie got 2.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 34% Metacritic, and a whopping 19% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so Don't worry, guys. I took this tranquilizer dart for all of us. I watched it again.
Again?
Yeah. Well, I saw it like once when it first came out and never again.
God,
So
I'm sorry.
yeah. It's not very good. You know how we were talking about last time? We were talking about X-Men and that whole idea of film adaptations of, geek-friendly or genre material actually learning to respect the material and portray it accurately. Doom's a very good example of when that's not done. First of all, there's no hell in the movie. Hell does not play a part.
But that's the whole thing of Doom. It's hell. It's the creatures from hell, like the major boss in like it's sin, and I'm flabbergasted by that.
Oh, wait till you hear what they did instead. Instead, it comes from Martian genetic research, where they make a serum that will either turn you into a superhuman or a demon based on whether you have good or evil genes.
Seriously?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I am not kidding. Rosamund Pike's in this movie. I'd forgotten. She has this monologue explaining about, there's 10% of the human genome not yet mapped, and some people believe that that's where the soul is location. When she means some people, what she actually means is fucking nobody. So that's the entire setup, because we find out halfway through the movie that The Rock has evil genes, because they've all been infected by this thing.
Of course he does.
Even though the first half of the movie set up...
But he has evil genes, but he has a good heart?
No, it's the thing, like the first half of the movie, he's set up as like the ultimate square-jawed super sergeant. All his men love him, he's completely noble. And then they suddenly go, okay, evil genes, you're the bad guy now. And it's mainly famous for the first-person sequence.
Yeah, because I remember
everyone references.
I remember seeing when that was being reviewed on film review shows at the time. You saw a moment of it. Oh, hang on a minute! This looks like somebody's actually managed to realify up, if that's a word, which it is now, what it would be like playing Doom. It's like you're getting the first person. This is exactly how someone. So they've managed to find the mechanics of how it looks when you reload or change weapons.
Yeah, if you haven't played Doom and don't know much about video games, it's fucking terrible. I mean, it has that thing where, sometimes in TV shows and everything, they fake up a video game.
Yeah.
They show someone playing a game, but you can tell it's actually some kind of animation.
Actually, I remember there was a version of this in The Beach, the Alex Garland movie, or the movie of the Alex Garland book with Leonardo DiCaprio. There was a section which is supposed to be a dream sequence, which was done as if he's in a video game. That was actually done relatively well, but it's often done really, really badly.
Yeah, and it kind of is in this case. Like, everything's too floaty. It doesn't look right. It looks overly staged, which is a thing that's done quite commonly. And it drags on. It's about 5 minutes long.
Now, here's the thing. I think for a later episode, we will look into video game adaptations, possibly in a few months' time, or a little while's time, when the Warcraft movie eventually comes out.
Yay!
Yeah, totally.
Because this is the thing. It is arguable to say that there has not been a good video game adaptation to a movie yet. You and I are going to differ on Silent Hill.
Shut your dirty whole mouth.
But my point being the fact that this is one of those areas where, because of the very nature of the difference between the two forms, it is very, very difficult to be able to transfer some of the qualities in terms of narrative and structure from one to another.
I have a lot to say on this, but I'm not going to talk about it right now, because if we do, we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in terms of the Doom movie, I mean, there's part of that problem there, because a lot of it comes across as a bad Aliens ripoff.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever feels like Doom, which is a common problem.
Oh, sorry for interrupting. I heard from people who had seen it that it was trying to be like Riddick. Is it Chronicles of Riddick, the one with Vin Diesel in it? They were trying to get that kind of atmosphere.
Pitch Black.
Oh, Pitch Black, that's it, sorry. And they were trying to get that kind of atmosphere and that kind of style of movie, but just totally fucked with it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of it in there. I mean, definitely sort of trying to replicate the same sense of attitude, but it just comes across as a little forced. Really, it doesn't really work.
So we've looked at the movie, we've looked at the cultural legacy, we've looked at all the originals briefly for the moment, because I noticed we haven't really had that much time to be able to play this so far. Certainly I haven't, because I'm not going anywhere near the sodding thing. Any immediate thoughts on the new version, Cav?
I played about 2 hours last night on Steam, So it's a 43 gig download, I think. So
Ouch.
it was basically downloading half of Thursday and all of yesterday. All I can say so far is it's fucking great. It's brought back the feel of the original Dooms. It's completely insane. A lot more exciting than Doom 3 was. I don't want to say too much. I'd rather wait till we've had Chani have had a chance to play it, but seeming good so far, yeah.
Well, I went and I brought it. I waited all day at work. I got home. I installed it, which took a few hours because it's huge. I clicked on the little icon. Steam told me it's preparing to load Doom. And that's about it. I don't know why it's not working on my computer. I have a relatively new computer that is geared for gaming. So I've been spending many hours trying to fix the damn issue. But I did see beta gameplay of this for the multiplayer at PAX last year, which is how I got so excited about this game, as I wasn't very excited about Doom 3 and I couldn't give, it's not up there. But this gameplay that I saw at PAX really got me excited. So I've been so looking forward to this, and it's been such a letdown that I haven't been able to play it straight off the bat. But when I do, you're all going to know about it.
Just for the sake of anyone who's overseas, could you explain to us what PAX is?
PAX is the Penny Arcade Expo, and I'm not sure whereabout it is held, if it's held anywhere else in the world, but it is an American con that starts, they have like PAX East, I think it's called, or PAX Midwest, or I can't remember the different versions of it, but it is a gaming expo. So you can go in, see all the upcoming games, exhibitions, try different games as well. They also have indie developers there showing off their games. They have parts where you can go and play board games, card games. They have nights afterwards where there will be a band there as well, like geeky bands. They have all different kinds of special guests that come in and do talks and panels about all different kinds of things. It's a 3-day event. It's been in Australia 3 times now, and I've been to each of them, and I absolutely love it. It is my favorite con. I've dropped all other cons. I'm sorry, Supernova. I'm sorry, Comic Con. You're just like a giant store. You just have stuff that you walk around and buy. PAX is interactive and so much fun. Oh, I love it.
Yep, we've got next one coming up in November. Can't wait.
And I may well even come and join these two to see what the fuss is about, because frankly, one of the things that they have as a strength of this podcast is I have my niche, you've got your niche, you've got your niche. And some of our niches all overlap with each other, and it's one of the things we're looking to expose each other to in the future is
we are not exposing ourselves to each other, just letting you know there is no immediate exposure happening in the room as we are talking.
Thank you for that one, Chani. I wasn't going to expose myself because frankly that's just not... But I'm more thinking in terms of we can enthuse about our particular areas of expertise. And we'll be looking into that in future podcasts. So, for the moment, I think we're going to have to leave this one be. We'll probably get around to reviewing Doom 2 both in print, well, I say in print, online on our various different pages, and also we'll mention it in probably the next podcast. So by the time we get there, we should hopefully have had enough time to be able to have a good play of it. So, in the meanwhile, if you want to be able to get in touch with us, there is the There Will Be Geek page on Facebook. There is a podcast group which is open for anyone to join and join in with the discussion whenever they like. You can find this podcast on SoundCloud. You can find it on iTunes. There is a Twitter account for us, although we've not been very active with that so far, but there is there. We've mostly been Facebook so far. You can mostly get in touch with me on any of those things. Cav, where can we find you?
Oh, well, I'm a part of the show page. Also, you can read my stuff in Metro Magazine, which is one of Australia's longest-running film and TV magazines. Got a new issue coming out very soon, where I'll be talking about the Wizards of Oz.
Awesome. Chani, where can we find you, other than the obvious places?
You can find me on YouTube. That would be at youtube.com/PrimaCat. So that's PrimaCat Plays. You can watch me play all different kinds of games. You can also find me on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook. We'll put links down in the description.
In the meanwhile, thank you very much for listening, and I think there's only one more thing to say. We're finished!